I get many investors contact me and ask, how do you find good deal sponsors, or how do you find good deals? And to most people that have a normal job, a W-2 job, don't know how to do that. They don't spend the kind of time that you and I do, looking at deals and looking at deal sponsors. So I get to play that middleman and help people get into opportunities. And that way I'm also looking out for them. And if there's an issue or a question, the deal sponsor is more likely to listen to me or to respond to me if I've written $1 million or a $2 million or a $3 million check than somebody that's just written a $50,000 check. They will respond to me and I could get answers faster. So that's the role I play as the middleman, helping investors get into opportunities.
Hey everybody, this is the Yield Coach Show, Season 1, Episode 28. I am your host, Ian Brown. As always, every episode we bring you dynamic entrepreneurs, real estate investors, business leaders, and inspirational guests ready to open up, share their story, the good, the bad, the ugly, so you can learn lessons, gain advantages, and accelerate your own success. I'm very excited to have our guest today, Jeff Greenberg. Jeff has 17 years of experience with over 60 million in transactions under his belt, over 1,650 units in his investing history. He's also a limited partner investor in 1,100 units. He is from California, went to California State University, and had a portfolio focused in Texas, Ohio, and Alabama. He's currently the CEO of Synergetic Investment Group, LLC, and president of Tri-Coastal Real Estate Investment. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun.
Oh, definitely. Very, very excited to have you, somebody with your resume and your depth and background. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of how you came to be sitting on this show with me.
Well, I've been in the real estate business for quite some time, and I call myself a recovering syndicator. I've done all aspects of syndication, either doing deals by myself or with multiple other players in it, and now headed more towards the equity fund side of the business. But I've done quite a bit. I've seen quite a bit. And so I leverage that experience to help others.
And with your, your real estate background, I see from your resume here, your information, you have like a math background from Cal State. How did you go from, obviously there's math involved in investing, but real estate, I'll tell you what, I was a history major and I'm a Florida attorney, and there wasn't a whole lot of math in my training, and here we are both kind of focused in the same topic. So how did you jump over into real estate?
Well, the math end of it, I mean, the math end in real estate is not that complicated, even though I do enjoy playing around with Excel spreadsheets and doing creating formulas and calculations and all that stuff. But the business doesn't require a lot of skill in math. And Excel helps out quite a bit as well.
Right.
And when I really get in trouble, I go to my son, who's got his master's in math and physics. So, and he could always write something for me. But the way I got into it had nothing to do with my background in education, I guess. It was more of when I was going through a divorce, I realized that I wasn't going to have sufficient retirement funds, and decided to start looking at what else I can do. And go on a hike with a friend of mine, we started talking about real estate. And then we both got involved in commercial real estate, started hooking up with a couple of gurus and learning from them, and went on from there.
That's interesting. I feel like the guru space, like the private education space, it can sometimes get a bad rap, but I think usually that's unfounded. I meet a lot of guys or interview a lot of guys like you where some mentorship or coaching or, guru stuff is part of the story. And we talked before this interview that you and I are both in actually the same capital raising mastermind right now. And we're both getting a lot out of it. So so this is, I assume, sometime 17 years ago or more, you get involved with this guru. What was the focus? Was it like a multifamily mastermind, or what kind of a guru was this?
Yes, it was a multifamily boot camp,
Mm-hmm.
and it went on for different areas of multifamily at the time. And I agree with what you're saying that people need some kind of coach, some kind of somebody to help them. A lot of times, though, a lot of these gurus just want to get a lot of people in the audience and a lot of people signing up for their exclusive programs. So you just have to be careful which programs you get into. But I also know a lot of people that have, you know, hooked up with partners that are a few steps ahead of them, and basically were able to be mentored by this partner. But it's all about you're either going to bring money to the table and pay a coach, or you're going to bring something else. You're going to bring boots on the ground. You're going to bring capital. You're going to bring some resource of some kind to help somebody out, you know, in order to learn. I'm not saying, you know, that there isn't great value in paying somebody for some things. This isn't the only mastermind that I'm in, the one that you and I are both in. So you can definitely accelerate your knowledge by being around people that are a few steps ahead of you or going where you want to go. So however you do it, you know, either by providing value to them or, you know, paying for a course or a coach, it certainly will accelerate what you can do on your own.
And just for all of those that are on the edge of their seat wondering what mastermind we're in, we're in the Hunter Thompson RaiseMasters mastermind for capital raisers. All right, Jeff. So you get with this, you know, you have your boot camp. This is, you know, 17 plus years ago. What did you and your partner jump right into?
Well, we were looking at multifamily, and being very conservative as we were, we didn't jump quickly into anything. We were looking hard, and it was about 2010 that we bought our first deal, which was about 2 years after we had really gone through some of these boot camps. But we did find a 20 unit that we purchased in South Texas, and we syndicated it. It was really too small of a deal to syndicate, but it became a great education. We made plenty of mistakes on it, but they were small enough that we were able to continue on, and we learned a lot from that small syndication.
And I know we are later going to talk about, you know, syndication versus fund, but before we do that, so for the syndication, you said you learned some lessons on doing a 20 unit, you know, one of your first deals. And my smaller deals, you know, I would do either alone or with one partner who was really a friend. So we're really more like just JV, both sponsoring, both personal guaranteeing. Usually I would operate the deal or asset manage it. What did you learn on your 20 unit? You know, what were your takeaways? You said it was too small to syndicate. Can you elaborate?
Well, first of all, it was only about 3 years old. It was 100% occupied, and it was in a slow growth market. So the first thing we learned is there was no value add. We really didn't have an upside. The only upside we had was slowly increasing rents. We did try to build back water. They were already paying for electric. So it was more of a buy and hold kind of thing, even though it wasn't really planned. We wanted to add value so we'd be able to sell it. So the big takeaway was, you know, if it's planned to be a value add, then you need to make sure that there's going to be some place for you to move. Now, there's nothing wrong with what we call a momentum play, which is you buy a property and hang on to it for a long time and eventually increase rents and increase the revenue and increase the value. There's nothing wrong with that, but knowing that going in is very important. So the thing we found out is trying to get past the pref that we were giving our investors was pretty difficult. So we weren't seeing any money for 6 years while we held that property. And at the end, we looked at how much value was added, and it barely broke even on what the broker was going to cost us to sell the property. So here we were going to sell the property and break even. And so we picked a number and we said, okay, we're not selling until we get this number. And we actually had to extend our loan for an extra year. We were supposed to sell in 5. We actually sold in 6 because we couldn't get our number. And that way we got our investors a fair profit. It was one of these things where they did better than the bank. They averaged 7% a year, which, hey, that's not too bad. Stock markets a lot of times aren't much better than that. But it wasn't the big win that we had planned on. It wasn't the 16% annualized return that we had hoped for. So that was a lesson on making sure that there are value adds, unless you're planning on holding it for a long time. There's a lot of people, nothing wrong with buying a property and hanging on to it for 20 years, but it doesn't typically work in a syndication.
Right, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine the biggest challenge was, the investors have the expectation of a return on their money, and then eventually a return of their money, and that of part, being beyond 5 years might have been where it got sticky. Versus if you did this again, the same 20-unit deal, you either explain up front, hey guys, we're going to hold this thing for 20 years or 10 years or more, or it's just a completely different structure altogether, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just, a momentum play property is a whole different thing, where you're expecting to hang on for a while and just cash flow. And we cash flowed. It was a good cash flowing property. But the big bonus at the end was what was expected, and that wasn't going to really happen. Not in that deal. So it just knowing what your plan is and making sure that you're set up for that plan. That wasn't working, so plan B was just to make a little bit of money and get out of it. But, we did hold it for a while. We worked for pennies, but our investors did okay. And some of those investors are still with me after 10 years or so, 10, 12 years, I still have some of those investors with me. So
wonderful. Yeah, so that alone might have made it worth it. Okay, so lesson there, if you're going to do a 5-year value add play, make sure there's enough room to move the needle. Of course, we can never count on compressing cap rates. A lot of people got lucky, in the past 6 years with that, but, they ran into a value add that took them 18 months. That was supposed to be 5 years, just because of cap rates. But moving forward from your 20 units, where'd you go next? We don't have to do every single deal you did, but just, I know you got into student housing and senior housing. So kind of, you took those lessons and where'd you go?
Yeah, I had some property in Houston, which was pretty much the opposite of this particular one, where we were, instead of selling in 5 years, we sold in 3 years and made a killing. Now, part of it was because we improved the property, we increased the occupancy, we increased the rents. We started a RUBS, which is a utility build back. But also what helped us is the cap rate compressed. And that is why so many people are successful for the last, you said 6 years, I would go as far as 10 years, that people have been doing very well. And a lot of it has to do with the market cap rates compressing. And so that's one thing I caution people on. Just because we've had a phenomenal market for the last 10 years doesn't mean that that's going to continue. You could have made a hell of a lot of mistakes during that time and still done very well because the market helped a lot of people out. A lot of people think they're geniuses because the market helped them out.
I know. Yeah, it's because I actually I was in commercial appraisal first, so I did all asset classes before the '08 downturn for about a year and a half, and then appraised through the crash. And then during the crash, I went off to law school because it was hard to find appraisal work for a little while there, other than REO work. And I came out of law school in 2013. Market was still pretty much in shambles. Real estate market, you had a lot of REO, a lot of special service stuff. And but if you bought anything, everything that I looked at when I came out of law school, you would be a genius now if you owned it. You could have just pulled it right off the shelf. Little did you know, your rents were going to double over the next 10 years. Cap rates were going to cut in half, and interest rates are going to plummet. So, I mean, you didn't have to get a ton of things right to do really well. And now I think, as the tide is, it's somewhat going out. I mean, mostly on the interest rate side, and obviously labor and construction has been expensive for a while. But, it's going to be interesting to see who's wearing pants as the tide goes out. Because a lot of people, it hasn't been a wildly difficult thing to make money in investment in commercial real estate, post 2008. So I think this is going to be a very interesting time. I know before the show we talked about, kind of as you transition from being a syndicator, and just to the audience, just to reiterate, syndication is going to be a one-off capital raise, generally for a single property. So, Jeff and I were talking before we started to air about moving to a fund model. And Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, let's talk a little bit about, how and why you might have gone more from syndication and now into the types of fundraising you're doing.
Yeah, for the past years, I have been the main GP. I mean, that's a lot of times that's the goal of most investors, is they may start out as an LP and then work their way up to being on the GP side, and then they want to be the main GP. They want to be the main person operating the deal. There may be many people carrying different parts, but typically they're the main person. Well, that's what I've been doing for quite a few years, and I decided that that's really not what I enjoy doing as much as the equity side of it, which is raising funds, helping investors get into opportunities. Now, all the deals I did, or all the raises I did all over those years, were my deals, and so I was raising for my deals. So more recently, and the reason I joined the mastermind that you and I are in, is because I wanted to start raising money for other people's deals, and I wanted to learn how to properly do it and how to help people get into good deals. Now, I could raise for other people's deals on one-offs. I mean, I could come in on the GP team and raise money for deals and be legally able to do that as long as I'm a part of the GP team. But also, if I come in as part of the LP side of it, then we could just come in together as passive investors. Now, I've done that with a one-off entity, which we call an SPV, or a single purpose vehicle, and raised money for it. But I found that if I create a fund that is customizable, I could have the fund created and bring people into that fund and offer all different opportunities where the investors can pick and choose which ones they want to be in. They're not obligated to be in all the different opportunities within the fund. And that way I have one blanket fund, one PPM for investors to sign, and we just bring opportunities in as we're able to. It was a much more desirable situation, much easier for me to handle. Investors get 1K1 at the end of the year, no matter how many opportunities they're in. We can move a lot faster because we don't have to wait to form an entity and to create our own private placement memorandum. That's what a PPM is. We don't have to wait for the SEC attorney to do all the documents because we've already got it done. So we can be a lot more nimble and get into opportunities. And then if I'm going into a deal with a large check, I can negotiate up front with the deal sponsors so the fund will get a better deal. And so I can get investors equal to or better than what they would get if they went straight in. Not only that, they have me looking after them and doing the due diligence for them. I get many investors contact me and ask, how do you find good deal sponsors? Or how do you find good deals? And to most people that have a normal job, a W-2 job, don't know how to do that. They don't spend the kind of time that you and I do looking at deals and looking at deal sponsors. So I get to play that middleman and help people get into opportunities. And that way I'm also looking out for them. And if there's an issue or a question, the deal sponsor is more likely to listen to me or to respond to me if I've written $1 million or a $2 million or a $3 million check than somebody that's just written a $50,000 check. They will respond to me and I could get answers faster. So that's the role I play as the middleman, helping investors get into opportunities.
Now, Jeff, just for my own personal curiosity, so you have your SPV, kind of like you're doing more of a fund to funds type model. What about, is there an extra accounting burden when you do kind of a multi-asseted, it's almost like an a la carte within your fund? Say I want to come in and I want to do, the strip center deal, the self-storage deal, but not the senior housing deal. I get 1K1. Is it not as bad as I probably perceive on my side of the microphone, or is it a little more administratively burdensome?
Yeah, there's definitely going to be more administration, but the particular portal that we're in, that's what they designed. They designed the software to keep track of all that, to keep track of what shares each individual investor has, what their distributions are, and when the K1s come in from each of the investments, to be able to divvy it out to each of the investors, so we have the numbers to give to our CPA, who will produce a single K1. But yeah, that's a software issue. I do know somebody else that is doing it through an accounting company. So he's paying an accountant to keep track of all of that. So it is doable. I don't know what what his costs are, but we're doing it through software. So it's a lot more convenient for us.
Jeff, do you mind, just in case the audience is curious, do you mind sharing what you're using?
The platform is called Avestor, Avestor.
And I know we're not affiliated with Avestor, of course, but it just, for the audience, are you satisfied with what it does?
Yeah, so far. I mean, we haven't gone through a full year yet, so I'm waiting. This will be our first tax year, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a good platform. They're very helpful. They are easy to get a hold of. In fact, even on Saturday and Sunday, they seem to respond to my emails. So they've been very responsive and helping out. There are some issues on their platform that need to be worked out, but they are working on a lot of those things. Some of the user interface could be more desirable. So we are working with them and getting some of the bugs out. But the concept is what I really like, and so far I haven't found anybody else that is able to do some of the things that we could do on this portal.
Well, thanks for sharing. All right, so with your Synergetic investment group, we're in a turbulent / pre-turbulent time here. What are you focused on now? What would your fund be targeting, and is it any different than what you were targeting, 24 months ago?
I was looking very heavily at multifamily, and I still like multifamily. That's always going to be the basis of our stuff. But I'm looking more for some cash flowing investments, where multifamily typically, especially now, you're not going to see a lot of cash flow. You still may get some good return at the end, but typically not cash flow. So I'm still going to have multifamily in my portfolios, but I'm also looking at self-storage and mobile home parks. And right now I'm looking at a short-term rental fund. I'd like to get into senior living. I have an appointment this afternoon with someone that's buying RV parks. There's all different assets, and I need to learn about those and find people that I'm comfortable investing with. And when I find someone that I'm comfortable investing with, then I'll let my investors know and see if they want to go along with me. And that's part of why I'm doing this as well, that I sold off a lot of properties. I have money of my own to invest. I will invest alongside of my investors on all of my investments. And I figured I'm going to have to do the due diligence anyway for myself. Why not bring other people along with me? And so
that's a great point. I like that a lot. Yeah.
I get to leverage all that time I get to spend on the due diligence.
Yeah, and there's a level of authenticity, when you say, Jeff, I'm going out to place capital or redeploy capital that I've, pulled out of other deals. Do you want to come along with me? I am personally invested in these as well. I think that resonates and rings a lot more true than somebody that's just, raising capital that they don't have their own skin in the fund. And it's different. Even if you're an operator, because I'm probably more of an operator. So even if I'm going to go out and raise capital as an operator here in Jacksonville, Florida, and maybe it would be multifamily, maybe storage. I'm a fan of surface storage as well in Florida, like boat, RV, oversized vehicle, and those cash flow really well. And you're right about RV parks. I don't own one, but I would definitely do one. They definitely cash flow well and year round here in Florida. But regardless, if I went out to raise money for one of my deals as an operator, I still think if I don't have my own cash going in, and I don't necessarily just mean like trading some of my fees, like am I putting any actual cash in this deal? It would be a question I would ask. I know you put out a book or a kind of an ebook about questions passive investors should be asking. I think, that's an important one. Are you investing alongside me? Let's say your deal has a minimum investment of, $50,000. Well, are you putting in $50,000? Or are you foregoing $50,000 worth of fees, things like that? So I just think those are great things to ask operators. So as you look, are you having a harder time? I know a lot of us are. I'll speak, I know that I can't find the properties right now that I made good money on, even as late as 2019. I look all the time and I just have not found kind of that. I did well with like medium-sized multifamily. I still have an 83 unit in Georgia with a partner. But I was doing great in Jacksonville with 28 unit deals and kind of these medium-sized deals. And now, kind of everything's picked over. And a lot of the sellers, if they're even borderline sellers, they haven't, they bought the property with the expectation of, doubling quickly. And now that the next guy can't double, they're just kind of parked. And maybe they don't want to face the music. They certainly don't want to sell at a discount. And if they're cash flowing, they don't need to. So I know we're looking for maybe some loan assumption deals and maybe some people that are coming into maturities that might have motivation to let a property go. But I was just curious, if you have strategic changes, with this current climate we're in.
Yeah, I definitely feel that down the road, not so long down the road, we're going to be seeing some distressed properties, or maybe not distressed properties, but distressed owners, especially if they got into bridge loans that may be coming due. And now interest rates are higher, so they can't sell it for what they really want to sell it for. So definitely, I think there's going to be opportunities. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm looking for other things other than just multifamily, because I feel multifamily, is overpriced. Now, that's not to say that there aren't some people that can find good opportunities. It's just, when I was doing it, we were looking at hundreds of deals and maybe evaluating 100 deals and making an offer on 20. And if we were lucky, best and final on 5 or 10 and maybe getting one. It just seems like it's a lot more now to actually find that one. But if I get the opportunity to hook up with somebody that has that one, and now all I have to do is evaluate that one that he got awarded. Now I'm looking at a lot less deals because this guy's already looked at 100 deals. He found this one, and hey, I could come in and partner with him on that. So I would rather do that. So my big challenge is finding good quality operators. Mm-hmm. But also, it gives me also the advantage to find good quality operators outside of multifamily. I'm not an expert in all these other areas, but if I could find someone that I consider an expert, a good quality operator in, assisted living or RV parks or all these other different build to rent, so many different areas that I could get into those and help my investors diversify into those different asset types. That's that's what excites me, is finding some of these good quality operators. And I'm real slow to get in with an operator. I have to get to know them, and I have to know their operations, and I really want to see what's going on with their business before I'm going to start raising money with them. But I have the advantage that I don't have to be in any hurry. I don't have to be in any rush. I don't have money up front to deploy. I mean, I have my own, but I don't have investors' money. I don't bring in investors' money until we have an opportunity. And when we have an opportunity, then we bring the money in. We don't hold money until there's an opportunity. So
makes sense. You don't want to run the meter on that money when you don't have somewhere to deploy
no.
it. Do you have any tips, Jeff, on or tips you'd like to share about finding quality operators? I know you said you're still working on that, but things that have worked for you, maybe things that haven't worked for you, and finding operators to partner with?
Well, a lot of times it has to do with masterminds, finding people in different masterminds. I found several different people in a different mastermind that I was in. Many quality people that I would work with. In fact, I'm invested with a couple in the last deal. A deal I raised in Houston was some guys that I met about three or 4 years ago at a mastermind. Really hit it off with them and been trying for the last couple of years to invest with them. Another one that I've invested with is a lady that I originally hired on as an asset manager in a property that we had in Camarillo, Texas. And she did such an awesome job on it. And I saw how she worked. I told her if she was ever a GP and had her own deals, to let me know when she's needs me to raise some money for her. And I've raised money on 2 of her deals now. So those are the kind of people that I want to work with, is those people I could call my friends, and I want to work with them. But otherwise, yeah. I see a lot of deals that people are raising money for that I don't like. Mm-hmm. I think they're too risky, especially in this environment.
Yeah, I echo that same sentiment. So I've been, an active direct operator investor probably since 2016, and I was in real estate, 10 years before that. So I've been in about 16 years. And there hasn't been anything that's come across my desk that I would feel confident. I mean, unless I had to make an offer that's so low, I'm going to burn the bridges with I know all the commercial brokers in my market. I know a lot of the operators and management companies. I don't, some people say, oh, make an offer on everything. Well, I don't want to slash all these relationships with, offers that are, 60% of what they're, it depends on the circumstances, but usually I don't want to do that. So, I think that it's, I was thinking about your comment earlier about like masterminds and the networking, and you really can propel yourself so much quicker by going to, I like your point about like, maybe you're not the one underwriting 100 deals to submit 20 offers to get best and final on 5 or 10, and maybe you win one. And then when you win it, you're like, well, shit, did I win it? Meaning like, did I miss something? Because sometimes you wonder when you come to the top of the pile, in this type of competitive market, like, ooh, like, did I miss an assumption here? And so I think by partnering with people that are just always doing that, and that's their business, and if you're enjoying the capital raising side, I think that's awesome. I haven't done this yet, but I'm a Florida attorney, broker, and appraiser, but I paused my title in escrow, which is what my main practice was for 7 years. I paused it about 10 months ago just to focus on my investments, thought leadership, getting ready for what I think is going to be an opportunistic buying wave here. But, I also think that what I'll do is I'll probably go to some continuing legal education conferences. I might just go to some that are big because they're big. And that way I might have an audience of people that would be ripe investors that are not going to, capital raising masterminds, that might want an alternative, placement for some of their earned income. And that likely a busy attorney, I know I live that life. They're not a great candidate for just going out and like being an active investor on the side. They could, really anyone could if they want to badly enough, but these busy, high paid, either high net worth people or like well-paid self-employed people, it's not easy to just go, oh, I'm going to grab a quadruplex around the corner and turn it into an Airbnb and manage it with my wife. It's not as sexy as some people think. So I think what you offer your investors and what I'm trying to offer through Yield Coach Capital on some upcoming deals, it's really beneficial, especially at a time when if you just parked your money, like in the S&P. I didn't look today, but before the weekend, I think we were down 17% year over year. So don't quote me to the percentage point, but at least down 15%. And my real estate holdings, I know you've divested a lot, but we buy with great debt coverage ratios. I like a nice low break-even occupancy in my multifamily, and I tend to not have any ballooning debt. I have in the past, but I don't right now, and I wouldn't take it on. I wouldn't take on short-term debt right now. So I feel really good. I don't own anything that I should be atypically motivated to have to let go in the next 36 months. So if you don't mind, Jeff, we sometimes jump into what I call the coach's corner. We do a bit of a deal breakdown. Do you have an investment deal that you would be comfortable sharing with us? We typically run through how did you find the deal, how did you fund it, how did you fix it, and how did you exit if there was a lesson. Mm-hmm. We can take it bit by bit. If you don't mind sharing a bit of a case study, and we can just start with what it was and how you found it.
Yeah, we had a deal that was a 225 unit in Camarillo, Texas. And at that time, I had about 9 people working for me that they had found it just talking to brokers and just broker relationships and all of that stuff. And we were doing this where they would be bringing in the deals. They would analyze the deals. So I wasn't doing it. I mean, in a 2-year period, we analyzed over 500 deals, and this one percolated up to the top. And so we made an offer on it, and we got that one. But it was through a lot of broker relationships and finding these deals. This deal actually came out of a partnership breakup where I believe they had about 20 or so properties that they were selling. And this was the only one that really was of interest to us. Well, actually, there was actually another one that we almost got as well, but we pulled out of that one. But they were selling about 20 different properties.
Okay, so you find this one through broker relationships. It's a multifamily in Texas. What was you told us a unit count? I think you said 220. How did you? What was the funding? What did you have to raise?
Let's see. The deal was 10.3. I think it was 10.3 million, somewhere around there, or 10.2. And we had to. We had to raise a little over $3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we had a $9 million loan, and we also had, I think, 1.6 capex reserve or line of credit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Was that through your first position lender, or was that another?
That was through the lender. This was bridge lending. Mm-hmm. So we had that. So we only had to raise a little over $3 million. So that wasn't bad.
That was all retail investors, Jeff?
Pretty much, yes. Yes, retail investors. I raised a major chunk of it, and I had a couple other people on the team raised a little bit as well. But we got that one raised and done and closed on, and then we started the renovations. Well, one of the things we were talking earlier about, some of the bumps in the road, there was one building that was in the middle of having the sewer taken care of underneath the building. They were tunneling under and replacing the sewer pipes, and the current owner he had already contracted and he was going to pay for it, and no problems. We figured, okay, we'll close on it, and the contractor will continue to do his work. Except the only thing is then all of a sudden the contractor comes in and says, oh, there's a whole bunch more that we have to do, and now he's got this change order. And of course, the seller isn't going to deal with a change order. He said, okay, now that's on us. So we had to deal with that. And in the meantime, the tunneling underneath the building to get to the sewers, we got into rainy season, and we got rain in there into the holes and everything. And then the building started to shift. So now all of a sudden we've got to deal with a foundation issue. And now we've got to deal with putting pilings underneath it to hold it up. We've got to continue to repair the building, get it fixed, and to bring it back online. Well, long story short, we had worked on that building for almost a year and put about $100,000 into it. That wasn't in our CapEx budget. So there was definitely a lesson learned on that one, making sure you have enough cash available beyond the CapEx, because the lender wasn't going to let us use that money for this building. That was not part of our CapEx. They didn't include that. That was other things. The other thing was, we started with this property about 85% occupied. We looked in there and we knew that there was a lot of old debt that the tenants had not paid. They owed, and so we knew that those people are probably going to have to be evicted. And one of the requirements was for the seller to evict them before we closed. Well, the seller didn't do that, and so we ended up renegotiating. We got about $150,000 reduction on the sale price because he didn't do that. Mm-hmm. So that was fine. So now we had all these people, and so we went to these people and we said, "Look, we're going to wipe your debt out. If you start paying now, we're not going to worry about any back payments. We're not going to worry about what you owed," figuring that most of them would be able to recover and start over and stick it out. And some of them did. But within 3 months, we were down to about 66% occupancy. I mean, typically you expect that you're going to drop in occupancy when you take over. Everybody should plan on that, because people know there's a new sheriff in town, that rents are probably going to be raised, so a lot of times people will leave. Well, we didn't expect to go down to 66, especially when our break even was about 70. And so we struggled, and we didn't raise enough cash, which is a big no-no and something that I definitely look for when I'm looking to invest in deals. We didn't have enough cash on hand. And so we struggled with that for a while. And then we got hit with COVID. So this was in the middle of COVID. And all of a sudden here, where you can't evict, you're trying to get new people in. We struggled with that deal for a while, and we ended up holding off on distributions. Our investors were super. They were good. We explained what was going on. We worked our tail off to get things going. Long story short, we put about $1.5 million into the deal, which would put our all in about 11.8, and we sold it in 2.5 years for 16.2.
Nice.
Okay, but when we sold it, we were up to 95% occupied. Mm-hmm. So we did recover from that. We did get it up there, and we made a fabulous sale, and our investors did fantastic. Now, as we spoke earlier, yes, the market helped us. The compression of the cap rate helped us in that market, but we also got it up to 95% occupied. We killed off a lot of deferred maintenance. We renovated, I believe, about 80 units. We had built a great management team, which was going to be available to the next owners. We had created community. So we did a lot in that property and came out very well. But it was a very, very challenging property, and my team did phenomenal. And as I mentioned to you earlier, the team that I worked with, which was my asset manager and the property management company, I still work with them on other deals now, because they're phenomenal. They're phenomenal, and they're great people. And so that's the type of people you want to work with, is people that you could do deal after deal after deal with, because they, when things get tough, they really get working. And
Yeah,
one
yeah.
just one little story. My property manager, who happened to be in Houston, her main office is in Houston. Amarillo is about 700 something miles away, and she found some pool furniture for us at a great price. And she hooked up a trailer to her truck and drove for 10 hours with that furniture to save us money. And she was living in our model unit for the first 45 days while we were ramping up. So it's those kind of people that you want to work with that really put out for you.
Yeah, and when you're going and raising capital for deals and you can speak to a team, of course the people you speak with, they know you. They want to invest with Jeff Greenberg and they want to invest with Synergetic Investment Group, but that's it. It's a group, somebody gives Yield Coach Capital or Ian Brown capital to invest. You're not just giving it to me. It's coming into our team, our ecosystem, our network. Maybe we're asset managing it, maybe we're not, but it's I think it's important to point out like the strength of your team with that example about her driving all the way over to save you money and live in the model unit. I had these 40 units in Jacksonville spread into 2 different properties, and I think I got up to 16, I call them voucher tenants, but HUD and Section 8 tenants vouchers. And I had a property manager that I'm very close with, and he saved my bacon so many times because I really was green at working with the housing authority, the paperwork, the extra inspection layers, totally underestimated the time period you might have in between tenancies, waiting on inspections, maybe a window doesn't open, whatever. He was so good at squeezing those timelines, bringing me the new voucher tenants, getting those things fixed. It's just an example of no one does this stuff alone. And, speaking to the strength of your team is great. Now, Jeff, if somebody were to invest with, like take that deal that you just talked us through, the 220 deal in Amarillo, what would be a normal, how would you typically structure that for your investors? What would that look like if somebody's investing with you?
Well, I mean, every deal is different. That particular one, I believe we had an eight pref, and I think we were at a 70-30 split after the 8 pref, something like that. If that's what you're asking about.
Yeah, it is. And so those investors were grinning ear to ear. That's a beautiful multiple that you were able to give them in less than 3 years. So
yeah, they I believe in 2.5 years got a 71% return, which comes out to about somewhere around a 31% annualized return.
Wonderful.
So, and they were great during the rough times that they understood. And that's something I tell people all the time, as far as when times get rough, that's time to communicate even more. You may be communicating once a month on good times, but on bad times, you start communicating every week and let people know exactly what's going on. So they don't have to be concerned and they don't have to ask you.
It sounds like from your story too, Jeff, another takeaway on that deal was reserves, not under raising, but in fact, maybe possibly over raising a little bit. Do you have any revised guidelines since that deal, or if you were to raise for a multifamily deal again, and I know you said you would raise more, but do you have any kind of rules you subscribe to on reserves and raising?
I don't have any specific rules, but I would want to make sure that if you drop down to 10% below your break-even occupancy, that you can hang on for 6 months or so. So you definitely want to have enough for that. And also, especially if you're investing in older properties, which I try to stay away from at this point, but if you're investing in older properties, always making sure that you have plenty of reserves for those things behind the wall and those things underground. And, I could still go on with other things that went wrong on that property that cost a lot of money. So there's all those unexpected things. And even on newer properties, I've had newer properties that we had plumbing issues. So you're especially in this environment right now, reserves are real important. What type of loan you have, if your loan will allow you to ride out bad times, that it's not going to come due. Um, you know, but having those reserves, money could solve a lot of issues, and making sure that you're investing right.
Mm-hmm. Those are some good lessons. I'm glad you walked us through that. Speaking of resources for the audience, I call this the Coach Brown breakdown. But is there a business or real estate book you've read recently that you would recommend for the audience?
Well, I don't know about recently. There's, the E-Myth is always a great book, which is, talks about systematizing your business. I think that's real important as far as having systems and a plan for your business, not just, ad hoc. But
Mm-hmm.
that's probably the one I could think of right now.
And that one does come up a lot. Actually, have not read the E-Myth, but it's on the list. I'm on this leadership book kick right now. So once I get off of those, then I'm gonna E-Myth's on my short list. I went through
There's
Atomic.
a lot of great books. There's a good one. There's a good one for people that are looking at being possibly a passive investor. As a friend of mine wrote, which is the Hands Off Investor by Brian Burke.
Okay.
Hands Off Investor. Brian's a great guy. He's been in the business for a while, and I think he did an exceptional job on his book.
And Jeff, when you're not out there crushing your professional goals, what do you do for fun?
Spend time with my grandkids. I also cycle, so I'm putting in every other day. I'm riding about 30 miles on my
Nice.
road bike. In fact, I'm probably going to go for a ride when we're done here. And then mainly spending time with my grandkids.
It's been a really good time, Jeff. We've learned a lot from you. Where can people learn more about you? Where can people find you? Say they want to invest with you. Tell us where we send them.
You could find my website is synergetic.ig.com, synergetic.ig.com. You could reach me at jeff@synergetic.ig.com. And then I also have a little freebie for your listeners. You can go to sigcre.com/sponsor. And it's a bunch of questions that you could ask the deal sponsor before you even start asking about the deal. Learn about the deal sponsor first, and then you can learn more about the deal after that.
Wonderful. And we'll make an effort to get all of that captured in the show notes for those that are listening, and you can find those links to get with Jeff. All right. If you enjoyed this episode, I know I did, make sure you rate and subscribe on whatever forum you're enjoying this. We're on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube. We try to be everywhere. And we do have this in video format. If you want to see how handsome we are, watch us on YouTube. And I believe Spotify has us on video now too. As always, it's been a pleasure. This is Coach Ian Brown. You can find us. We're very active on Instagram and LinkedIn. We're attempting TikTok, so don't judge us yet. But we do have a platform there if you want to smile. I haven't danced yet, but it's bound to happen soon. But it's been a good time. This is the Yield Coach Show signing off. I am Ian Brown reminding everybody to lace up and leave it all on the field. Yield Coach out.